Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope all of you are doing well. Today I've got another deck profile for all of you, although I won't be the one breaking this deck down today. That honor's actually going to go to my brother. You see, we recently had the chance to play a few games of the Make Your Own Card game, and it's always a blast when we get together and play. And he had a very interesting idea for a Delta Warrior deck that I wanted to show off, and fortunately, he was willing to put this little video together to break it all down for us. So thank you, Jacob, for putting this little profile together. And with all that being said, I will see you in the next video, and enjoy the rest of this video.
Hello, I'm Meat, and this is my deck profile for Make Your Own TCG. The deck I'm going to be showing off is called Delta Hand Control. It uses the Delta Warriors engine, as well as some powerful hand destruction effects to sort of control the game and play it a bit slow while chipping away at your opponent's life with burn damage. So the star of the show here is 3 copies of Ghostly Prank. This card is just phenomenal, especially after your opponent's played a search card or something on their previous turn. You shuffle their whole hand into their deck and they drop to 3. Combine that on turn 4 with 3 copies of Sinister Plot. For 4 power, you can essentially set your opponent down to 2 cards. Excellent combo here at a great rate of power cost. One of the main ways we're getting advantage is through 3 copies of Super Coin, just an easy +1 here at a fine rate. We got Prize Grabber as well that searches just about the entire deck, including Ghostly Prank. Just a great search card. Onto our Delta Warriors package, we got 3 copies of Raylum. This is kind of the best Delta Warrior card in my opinion. An okay rate at 4, but its effect is fantastic. Your opponent chooses and discards a card from their hand and then takes burn damage equal to its cost. That's going to lead to a Sophie's Choice situation where your opponent wants to keep their low-cost cards in hand so they can actually play on their next turn, but they don't want to discard their high-cost cards because they're going to take a bigger burn penalty. All around, this card is just phenomenal. It also has a good stat line. Gale is a consistency tool for Delta Warriors. It lets you dig for more cards at a good rate at 2. Blitz is a great card. It's cheap removal for opposing characters, and I think this card is just kind of great as a staple in most decks, but of course in a more focused Delta Warriors deck like this, it's great. Flora Sky, we're playing 2 copies of this. Good stat line with 4 defense, and it can slow down the game a little bit by gaining you life every turn, and you may get a little bit of card draw with its second effect as well if it sticks around. These next 2 cards, Pyro and Hydro, are a little bit more niche, and I think they're maybe a little bit cuttable in this list. But they are searchable with Call of the Heroes, so I still kind of like them. Pyro is more removal with a better stat line than Blitz. And Hydro's effect to be able to attack directly around your opponent's board can kind of get you out of sticky situations where you've been able to burn your opponent, but they still are able to set up a board. And then of course Call of the Heroes, perfect for Delta Warriors. Searches 2 hero cards and puts them in your hand. With the rest of these cards you kind of have a whole toolbox at your disposal. Next up we got 2 copies of Multi-Man. This is sort of a removal / utility card. Normally this can trade favorably with an opponent's card because many characters have more attack than they have defense, but this may also leave you with a decent effect on your side of the field as well. One copy of Return of the Ooze. This is just a burn card, which I think at 6 cost is like a decent rate for the amount of burn that it does. And it puts out a little bit of a threat that your opponent has to deal with. Malicious Master Max is a good card for the late game that helps you close out games quickly with high attack and a pretty good effect if it isn't able to stick around. Burst Attack is just a good removal +1 in card advantage because it replaces itself as soon as you play it. Frozen Cave is our terrain of choice. This has a slight floodgate effect for more aggro decks that might be able to get back into the game with a single high cost character. Suddenly with Frozen Cave they can't attack with that character, so it can delay the game a little bit and help you get a foothold in the late game if your opponent has really powerful characters in their deck. These next few cards are just sort of power spells to play in the late game when you've already successfully sort of controlled your opponent's hand and are just looking for ways to close out the game. Ice Spike slows your opponent down by preventing them from spending their power on the next turn. Forceful Bolt is like an extra copy of Ghostly Trick with a little bit of burn attached. And Bolt Burst is more hand destruction as well as removal. And our last card is Freeze, our only counter action in the deck. If you're sort of up in card advantage and your opponent hasn't been able to play much, you can save your power on your turn to play this on your opponent's turn and just really close out the game fast. Next up, I'd like to show off a couple of other cards. Enoch is a card that plays really well against this deck. Increasing your actions by 1 cost is a really big deal, especially early in the game. Facing off a deck that plays 3 of this card can be a real trouble. Decks that play high defense can sometimes give you a little bit of trouble as well. You don't have tons of removal in the early and late game, or early and mid game, but in the late game you should be able to get a foothold against decks like this. Next we have some cards that I would consider playing in the flex slots of this deck. Jake's Net Search, I think honestly I might throw this into the deck. Just because it's another strict +1 in card advantage, great card, and this deck benefits so much from having card draw and card advantage. Next up we have Coop. I don't think this card's rate is very good for the effect it has. It is burn and hand destruction, but the 5 cost and the reduced damage most of the time compared to Raylum I think is just not really worth it, but you could definitely play this card. And lastly we got Fireball and Flame Strike. These are sort of burn and removal cards, a little bit of flexibility in these. And I think that makes them worth considering, especially over cards like Return of the Ooze or some of the higher cost Delta Warrior cards. But other than that, I think the deck is really solid. If you like control game plans, decks that sort of disrupt the opponent's plays, I think this deck is perfect, and it also plays really well into a lot of the other decks that are available in this game at the moment. Thanks for watching.